Hey, Shalawam, Shalawam. First and foremost, facing the east, giving all praise, honor, and glory be to Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Wakakwadash. Those are the true names of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Yahawah is the Father's true name, that means He is, He exists. Yahawashi is the Son's true name, that means He saves, He delivers. And Wakakwadash equals the Spirit that's holy, a Spirit that's set apart. And the Lashawan Kwadash, the Paleo-Hebrew. Second of all, double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops of the great millstone, which rule well and teach well and sincerity taught us this truth. And Shalawam to the Lord's hopeful elect, 144,000 men, as well as 1/3 men, women, and children, maintaining themselves, keeping the laws, commandments, and statutes to the best of their ability. It's your brother Yerami Kazak, back with hopefully another edifying lesson through the spirit, power, and strength of Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Wakakwadash, as always. All right, we're going to get into this one. This one is going to be entitled, they should hate the whore, or, along the lines of that. All right. We're going to go into Trump speaking about leaving, all right, NATO. Okay. It's lucky if I got background noise, all right. My kids homeschool. But we're going to get into it. Hey, Shalawam, bro. Shalawam. Yahawashi, Yahawah, Barak. All right, so I got a video to play, and then we're going to go into, a couple of articles. So let's get it.
Not sticking together. I think that NATO made a terrible mistake when they wouldn't send a small amount of military armament, when they wouldn't send just even acknowledge what we were doing for the world and taking on Iran. I never considered it very risky, but war is always risk. A lot of strange things happen in war that are very bad, but I didn't consider it. I know how great I'm. We're the greatest military by far. Anywhere there was nobody close. I didn't think there was a big risk, but there's always surprises with war, and they can be very bad surprises. I mean, wars are lost that should be won. Many wars are lost. You think a country's going to wipe somebody out, and they end up getting wiped out themselves. So it's always risky. But I think a tremendous mistake was when NATO just wasn't there. They just weren't there. It's going to make a lot of money for the United States because we spend hundreds of billions of dollars a year on NATO, hundreds of protecting them. And we would have always been there for them. But now, based on their actions, I guess we don't have to be, do we? Mr. President. That sounds like a breaking story, yes, sir. Is that breaking news? Not
breaking news. Yeah, it's breaking news. All right, 1 second. All right, so it's breaking news definitely for us, more than the world. The world can't really understand what's going on at this point in time. They're caught up in everything. Right? They're following the Joneses. They're caught up in everything that's in their daily life, right? They're caught up in all these foolish debates. One Christian versus 10 Hebrew Israelites, That's what they're on. You understand? They're not on this truth. So let's go to Revelations, the 17th chapter. Okay. And I'll start at verse, and we could get the top. We could go through the whole thing. And I'll just get to the point. We start at verse 14. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. All right. Now, who is that? Really, the whole world is going to make war with Yahawashi. Okay. Everybody that Yahawah is gathering into the valley of Jehoshaphat, Yahawah Shaphat, Yahawah's judgment, the valley of decision. okay, is going to make war. But the main components, the main people is the Edomites, these nations, all right, which these so-called YT people are ruling over right now, such as Spain, France, Germany, UK, Europe, all of Europe, okay, America, wherever they at, they're the border of wickedness. So they're building themselves up to fight against one another. This is a house divided. And then ultimately, in the midst of WW3, which is about to take place very soon, I mean, we in it, in the midst of that, Yahawashi is going to return, our king, and they're going to all turn, and they're going to be afraid, but they durst fight, according to 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter. So verse 15, Revelation 17 and 15. And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples and multitudes, and nations and tongues. This whore, America, Babylon, sits upon many waters. She sits all over the planet. All right? As Trump just told you, they have the greatest military on the planet, in the world. And that's true. They do. They have an amazing military. But it's not compared to what Yahawah has and what he can bring up. He has, his determination is to gather the nations. He has gathered all these different nations against Babylon, against Edom, okay, where you probably never saw that what happened in your day. As you know how people always say, it's not going to end in my lifetime. Well, it's right in front of your face, all right? So you need to get right. Verse 16, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore. Those 10 horns is what you know as NATO, the EU, right? These Edomite kings, these kings, man, that are ruling, okay, they shall hate the whore. They were in unison with America at one point in time, working with America. As he said, we put billions and billions into NATO. We put billions and billions into funding them and supporting them and giving them military backing and technology and all of this. All right? America is the forerunner. Anything that happened in NATO, America really made it happen. It had to be ran up through America, right? But now he has what? He has different plans. And this is the same track record that has been happening. If you look it up, go back to last month. We brought this out. U.S. is against Spain, okay? And this kind of been like a back and forth for several, really years, all right? Okay, I'll read this real quick, and then I'm going to try to find an article. The U.S. and Spain experienced a sharp diplomatic and economic rift after Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez refused to let the U.S. use Spanish military bases for strikes on Iran. So, as he said, NATO wouldn't join. They wouldn't join to help fight Iran. So they were denying the U.S. the ability to use their bases to help in this war. They didn't want to get involved. They didn't want to get their hands dirty. And it's like, as we always bring the analogy up, somebody starting a fight and, leaving you there to fight by yourself. Because what if the U.S. is losing, which they're losing already? Let's say they were using Spanish bases. They start losing and Iran is hitting Spain. Then what is the U.S. going to do? They're just going to leave. As they done with Kuwait and, all these different nations. They just leaving them defenseless. That's what we saw when they took all their defense, sites and stuff, and they brought it back to Israel to protect Israel. When they left what you know is the so-called Middle East, all those nations, the oil nations, they left them defenseless. In America, you're supposed to be protecting them. So Spain, like, nah, you ain't about to do that to us. Okay? So it was a rift after Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez refused to let the U.S. use Spanish military bases for strikes on Iran and declined to meet aggressive NATO defense spending targets leading President Donald Trump to threaten and order a halt to bilateral trade. This is what this man constantly does. And this is why this will be done on him. He constantly threats with economic, I say this all the time. It's an economic war before it's a physical war. So you have fights with tariffs. You have fights with taxes. You have fights with all of that type of stuff before it gets physical. And that's how it was back in the day. Remember the Boston Tea Party? All right? Which they blamed natives. Wasn't no natives. It was Edomites dressing up as natives. All right? Making it happen. So it was before it was an actual physical war, before the British is coming, you had taxation. This is the same MO that these Edomites go through. They hit you where it hurts, in your pockets. Look at Americans. Look at y'all right now. They're hitting us where it hurts. They're breaking us down through money, finances. All right? Everybody's feeling it. Even if you want to fake it and act like you're not feeling it, you're feeling it, man. Okay? So that's right there. That's just showing a track record of them going back and forth with Spain. All right? And let me see if I get an article real quick. Okay. This one right here, this is what he did. Trump orders U.S. to cut all trade with Spain as... Man, come on, man. All right. Y'all, these damn ads. As feud escalates at NATO summit. All right? So that's what happened. So they're fighting within themselves. And that was back in July. All right? So these things, this tension has been building up. Okay, let's get a precept. This is Matthew 12. And we'll start around I just get 29, I get the straight point. All right. Actually, I'll start at 27. And if I by Beelzebub cast out devils, by whom do your children cast them out? Therefore they shall be your judges. When the Pharisees was trying to say that Yahawashi did his things through what? Through Beelzebub, which that's not true. All right, his power came from Yahawah. Okay, verse 28. But if I cast out devils by the spirit of power, then the kingdom of power is come unto you. Or else how can one enter into a strong man's house and spoil his goods, except he first bind the strong man, and then he will spoil his house. All right? So that's what you're seeing right now. You're seeing the strong man being binded up, right? Now, this is the one I was looking for. Mark 3 and 24. And if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. So as we're talking about France, as we're talking about Spain, and NATO in general is against America. America is against NATO. Okay? So you already been had Russia against U.S. So that which the Russians are Edomites, you've had them divided already. All right? Since the Soviet Union and all that. They've been divided against America. So that tension, it just continues, ongoing. All right? So now it has broken to NATO, which is, it's a powerhouse which it allows America to move how they want to move. Because who wants to fight NATO? Right? But now America is breaking away. All right? So you're defenseless, man. Everybody's looking at you like, hey, yeah, we might could take these guys. We might could knock these guys out. All right? So the weak nation shall say I'm strong. The courage of everybody, the hope for everybody is rising because they could finally take down the big bad wolf. He's bare. Esau is made bare. He's exposed, right? And then furthermore, Ezekiel 39 tells you that Yahawah has a problem with the Russians as well, Gog and Magog. He's going to destroy them as well. He's going to take out NATO as well. Okay, this whole Edomite kingdom is going down. But Yahawah is what? He's putting spirits on them to what? To fight against one another. All right? Remember, he's the father of spirits. So 24. And if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. The house of Esau is divided. The house of Edom. Whatever you want to say. No, not just the Americans. No, not just Amalek. All right? No, not just Taman. No, the entire house is divided. Verse 26. And if Satan rise up against himself and be divided, he cannot stand, but have an end. All right? Talking about who? The so-called YT man. It ain't talking about spiritual demon Satan. Spiritual demon Satan doing what he's supposed to do. You understand? He's doing exactly what he's supposed to do. All right? This is talking about the old disobedient one. Esau, Edom, being took down. And if Satan rise up against himself and be divided, he cannot stand, but have an end. No man can enter into a strong man's house and spoil his goods, except he will first bind the strong man, and then he will spoil his house. So Esau is being bonded up. He's being made defenseless. He's being made bare. All right. So let's go back to Revelations, the 17th chapter. Verse 16. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, NATO, EU, all right, other Edomite nations. Okay. And understand it's the same thing as it was back in the day. When you talk about Rome, many people talk about Rome. You don't understand that Rome is in Italy. Okay. Italy is a country. Rome is a city. Right. Rome was the chief. It was the chief place, the capital. Okay. You had other states. You had other places that was aligned with Rome. Other Edomites. That would have been your NATO EU back in the day. These other nations that sent men, that sent soldiers to fight with the Romans. That's how Rome was, it was established with all of them. They were working together. So it was all these other nations that was with Rome, which are Edomites. That's why it's also sometimes called the Greco-Roman Empire. All right. So Rome was the chief place. That's where the Caesar was, But you had different regions, look at Pontius Pilate. He was ruling down in Israel. He was down there, ruling over that area, right? So you had different people ruling over different areas. Look at Herod. Okay, that's an Edomite, ruling over that area. You had puppet kings like that set up. When Rome called, they had to come answering. So when America calls, nobody's answering right now. When Rome is calling, nobody's answering. That's what's going on. So Trump is mad. He's the Caesar. And he's like, yo, why y'all ain't coming to fight? I'm calling for y'all to fight. We got to take out the Persians. And I'm calling for men of war. And y'all don't want to come and fight. Spain like, nah, we don't want to work with you no more. So what does Rome do to its allies that don't want to no longer support them? It takes them out. All right? It's hatred in the midst of Esau's house. Okay? So the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked. All right? What's that? Economically. You want to put tariffs on us? You want to hit us with all these different sanctions? You want to hit us for oil and hit us for goods and imports and exports, knowing that all these different nations import their goods to America. So all America really got to do is tax it. We're going to tax you on bringing it in. All right. Well, you know what these nations are going to do? They're going to say, no, what? You know what? Forget that. I don't have to do that. I could lose money. All right. We're going to economically destroy you. So that's what's going on. They're what? They're making her desolate and naked. She's vulnerable. She's open. Right? The borders have been open. You know? In a spiritual sense, physical sense, all of that. Yeah, Trump acting like he got... Nah, man. Look at what Biden did. Brought everybody up in... Put my phone on charger. That was enough. So you have the insurgents in this country already that they're here to take this place down. All right? To make her desolate and naked. Before the nukes come, understand this. You're going to have civil wars. You're going to have race wars. You're going to have purges. You're going to have anarchy and chaos on the streets. You're going to have all the things that the scriptures speak about, man. Jacob's trouble. Okay? So it ain't just going to be America leaves NATO today and NATO sends nukes tomorrow. No. It's not how things work. What do we need first? The MOTB. The RFID hip. All right? You need WW3 to be taking place. It's going to be declared. You need a draft. You need Isaiah 3rd chapter towards the end where the mighty men die in the war, your strong men die in the streets. So how do those mighty men get to the valley of Yahawashi? A draft. You need men to be sent over to fight. Right? You need those Isaiah 4:1 women, which are going to be widows. They need to be lamenting, crying, because their men have been killed. Right? So all these different type of things have to take place before the nukes are sent. Do you see brothers with all these different type of women? No, you don't. Right? Do you see the MOTB mandatory on the street? No, you don't. Okay? I get that for you, bro. 2nd Esdras 13 and 31. And it reads, and one shall undertake to fight against another, one city against another, one place against another, one people against another, and one realm against another. Perfect. All right. What about the apparitions that's going to happen? Plagues. You're going to be plagued by demonic spirits, demons, dark spirits, things of that nature. Blackouts. Oh, we see what's going on in Gary, Indiana. Oh, expect more of that. All right. Expect much more of that in many different regions. Trump already told you that the power grid is on the fringe. The power grid is being overused. They've draining all the water. Do you know the power grid is attached to the water? Okay. Lake Mead. All right. Especially Las Vegas. They getting all their power from a dam. Esau sets up dams to fund his places to give them electricity. Now, with the power being used up, what's going to happen to the electricity? It's going to be damaged. All right? Droughts, things of that nature. So expect rolling blackouts. Expect more blackouts. You know? In blackouts, what happens? Grape, spoiling of one another goods, robbing, unaliving, murder, all this different type of stuff happens in these blackouts, man. Especially for you women that have no man. Let's say the lights go out tonight. All right, you don't know how to survive. They're not coming on for a while. You don't know what to do. You know, can you make a fire? Can you make a fire? Can you make a fire? You know what I'm saying? So, hey, it's going to get really bad for you. You know, one of the main, most valuable resources in the Jacob's trouble is going to be? It's going to be a lighter. A lighter. One of these boys, you know? Or really a Bic. You know, yeah, a Bic, man. You could buy some Bics for like $2, $3. That's going to be a valuable resource just to make a fire. Right? But hey, you don't want a man. Yeah, a woman's box is going to be your top two commodity. Especially a pregnant woman that can produce milk. You know? So these are the type of things that are coming to this place. All right? Okay. Let's get this, verse 32 in the same chapter. 2 Esdras 13:32. And the time shall be when these things shall come to pass, and the sign shall happen which I showed thee before. And then shall my son be declared, whom thou sawest as a man ascending. Yahawashi shall come. Okay? Amana wa Allah, you said a pregnant woman that can produce milk. Please explain. Why do I got to explain that? You think about it, brother. What did Yahawashi say? This leads me to believe y'all don't be reading the scriptures. All right? Mark 13:17. But woe to them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. Use your brain. A woman that can produce milk, why is she valuable? When you can't get any water, you can't get any food, you can't get any produce. The stores, the shelves are empty. Why is a woman that can produce milk from her breast, why is she important? I don't got to explain that. Come on, brother. All right? It's like, think about these questions. Keeping it going, Revelation 17:16. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked. And what? So economically, spoiling her out, destroying her from the inside out. All right? Plaguing her. Okay? As we talked about, the wars, the purges, civil wars, race wars, all this different type of stuff. In the middle of all that, the government is going to be offering you the chip. Hey, come get this chip and you'll be safe. Come into our 15-minute cities. Come into these cities where you can never leave again. Watch the movie Divergent. Okay, that series. You know, it shows you these cities with these mile-high walls or whatever, and you can't leave those cities. You're trapped in the middle of those cities. Okay? You know, and really, they could do that. You know, they don't really have to do it. They could simply just shut down the perimeter. They could put the National Guard over here, National Guard over there, National Guard over here, and shut down every highway. Okay? Well, you can't exit and leave your city. They could shut down LA easily. They could shut down Philly easily. They could shut down Charlotte easily. Shut down Raleigh easily. Shut down Atlanta easily. They've done it before. Okay? So they don't got to build no walls. Those movies are exaggerations. They could literally do this stuff just like that tonight. You know? I remember in 2020, 2021, what did they do? They enforced a curfew. All right? Hey, bro, I just watched Halalyam. That shit is fire. All right? It was fire. The voice acting was bad for old girl, but I looked it up. It was because they rushed it. You know, Hollywood, they get lazy. That's why I hate that shit. But yeah, Halalyam is a perfect one. All right? Equilibrium, yep, yeah. So those, you know, they're showing you what they can do. Where the rich, look at Greenland. That's a good one. Where the rich, the ones that they want to restart the world with, are the only ones that's invited to the party. They're the only ones that's invited. They need doctors. They need dentists. They need, military generals. They need, boom, you're selected to restart the world, the Great Reset. Everybody else is just fodder. All right? So they shall what? They shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. That's when the ICBM missiles is going to come. After this place is already, boom, this place is already at war. It's already in turmoil. It's already broken down. Then the icing on the cake is the ICBM missiles coming to destroy America. So America's already going to be in a violent state. It's already going to be broke down. Then you got missiles in the air coming down. And you like, damn, But in that time period, we going to what? We going to trust in Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, as we always do. And Yahawah, we make it up out of here. Verse 17, for power have put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of power shall be fulfilled. right? And the woman, and what? This kingdom right now is in the hands of the beast. All right? Until that appointed time, until his words are fulfilled. We had to wait until the time of the Gentiles. All right? These heathen nations to rule over us. Okay? And furthermore, us brothers to wake up, being Gentiles our damn selves. We was at times heathens. What Nelly say? I'm leaving. Please believe in. Yeah, me and the rest of my heathen. All right? We was heathens. Okay? We've been called heathen before. In second Esdras. I believe so, yep. You know, so heathen, Gentiles, all right, whatever you want to call it. We were in a wicked state of mind. We betrayed the Most High, all right, just by growing up how we grew up. But he saw fit to bring us back into this thing. So you hold on to it and you be grateful that you've been brought back into this thing. Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi. Verse 18. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. That great city, what? Babylon. Babylon the Great. That woman, that whore, which sits upon many waters. She reigneth over the earth. Who is the Slakia? Who is the head country right now? Okay? America. Babylon. She's being brought down, but she's still the head. She's still making all the moves, you know. And understand this, you can still have the banking families, the elites behind the scenes, all right? And all they're going to do when all this happens, which is like they losing control, they're going to go into their bunkers, man. These underground cities. So, hey, that's pretty much it, you know. I get an article on it. Let me go see. U.S. separating from NATO. All right. Let's read a couple articles on it. All right, this was a month ago. At the NATO summit, Europe faces an accelerating U.S. decoupling. So as I said, this track record, this stuff has been building up over time. You just got to follow the pieces. It reads, the United States appears to be pulling back from European security, with U.S. plans for withdrawal accelerating after a rift over support for the U.S.-Israeli war against Iran. NATO's Turkey summit could be the start of a transition towards a new version of the alliance, but there are fears it could leave European security worse off because America is stepping back. All right? So this is important to note, man. This didn't just happen overnight. This happened over many years. All right? And now it's just at the point where it's really about to happen. It's really about to take place. Okay? So you thinking it's tearing, it's nah. When it gets to, bro, when all these prophecies really get to rolling, there's no slowing them down. Okay? So that's what we're seeing. All right? So prepare thyself. Build thyself up. Stay strong in Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi. All right? Let me see anything else on that. I'll read this one. President Donald Trump signaled a potential U.S. withdrawal from NATO following friction over European allies declining to join military actions. Once again, they won't come and support Rome, right, or provide base access during the conflict with Iran. However, a 2023 federal law legally blocks an unilateral exit requiring a 2/3 Senate vote or an act of Congress. You think that's going to stop Trump? No. He been doing everything without Congress. Okay? So for him to say in this interview, this speech, for him to say in this speech,
not sticking together. I think that NATO made a terrible mistake when they wouldn't send a small amount of military armament when they wouldn't send, just even acknowledge what we were doing for the world and taking on Iran. I never considered it very risky, but...
You know, so just that in general. He's pissed off. He's mad. All right? And as we see with him going after Venezuela without Congress, going after Iran without Congress, sending the National Guard to California without Congress, sending the National Guard to Memphis without Congress, sending troops wherever he wants to send them without Congress. You think this gonna stop him? All right? This dude is moving like a Caesar. Okay? When you go into Caesar, you understand what Julius Caesar did. All right? And the Caesars after him, such as a Nero. Right? Well, Julius Caesar was the first one to do it. He said, fuck Congress, fuck the Senate. I'm going to just start a war. He just came back and he brought his military within Rome, where you don't supposed to do that. You're supposed to leave your military outward so you wouldn't have no military power while you come in. It was to stop anybody like overthrowing. But he did that and pretty much took over. He was fighting, what's the dude name? Pompey. All right? I believe his name was Pompey. You know, you could look up the history. I could be wrong. But it was a little civil war that took place. You know, and Caesar eventually won at the end of it all. And he became the first real Caesar. And then you had Augustus after him, and so on and so on and so on. All right, where they no longer, you know, listen to the Senate like that anymore. They ruled as kings. And if you really go into the executive orders that's been passed, George Bush's father set that up to rule as a king, where executive orders now can trump, that's funny, can trump Congress. All you gotta do is pass a quick executive order. You know? So the balance of the judicial, legislative, and what's the other one? Judicial, legislative, and executive branches is not really a balance. The executive branch has the most power. And the judicial and the legislative branch cannot stop that power. It can't balance it out because of an executive order. Right? Just the simple fact that if he declares martial law, he has all the power. Right? You know what I'm saying? So, hey, man, I'm going to end it right there. Pray this was edifying to the sheep. All right? Any type of questions, throw them in the comment board. But I don't see nothing. So, hey, facing the east, giving all praise, honor, and glory be to Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Kakwadash. Double honors always to the elders, apostles, and bishops of the great millstone, and Shalawam to the Lord's hopeful elect. Pray this was edifying. All right. Hey, stuff is popping off. If the U.S. truly does leave NATO, man, we ain't got that long. You know, bro. I think we within a year. You know, pray. Okay, the way that stuff is moving, the way that stuff is popping. All right, it's beautiful to see all of this stuff happening so quick. Like we say, when these prophecies are popping off the page, it's not gonna take that long. Okay? All right. You didn't get my notification? Well, that's TikTok, bro. You know? You know what I'm saying? That's how they do. All right. I put it in the group chat, you know. But hey, with that being said, Shalawam to the Lord's hopeful elect as well. Kwam Yasharahla and a Baba Ball. Keep the faith, brothers and sisters. Shalawam, Shalawam. Oh, round table tonight at 7 p.m. Okay? 7 p.m. Pacific. All right, 10 p.m. Eastern. Round table tonight. Weekly round table.